Slap. The sound echoed through the narrow alley as Nico Cruz, gang leader, live-streaming thug, smacked a homeless veteran's army cap clean off his head. Laughter followed. Nico's phone camera stayed trained on the older man, his face cracked from time and weather, lips sealed tight. Nico kicked the man's tarp-covered belongings into the gutter where rainwater pooled like sewage. "Still saluting, soldier," he sneered. "Your war's over, Grandpa. You lost." The man's name was Walter. Vietnam vet. Bronze Star recipient. Now sleeping on concrete beneath a rusted fire escape. He sat up straighter, refusing to show fear, but his hands trembled as he reached for the soaked tarp. His hat sat in a puddle 20 feet away. Nico leaned in. "You're a joke. You should thank me for cleaning up this street." Walter blinked hard. Still silent. "Go on," Nico growled, staring into the phone. "Someone stop me. I dare you." Nobody did. A few people glanced from across the street, some filming, most walking faster. Eyes down, ears shut. Until one man didn't. At the far end of the alley, Jason Statham stood still, hood up, takeout bag in one hand, his stare locked on the scene. He had seen enough. Jason walked forward, quiet as the rain. Nico turned. "Well, if it isn't Mr. Hollywood." "What's up, Statham? Want a selfie or something?" Jason said nothing. Nico stepped closer. "You gonna give me a monologue, tough guy? Or just stand there like your career?" Then, he shoved Jason in the chest. Hard. Jason's body barely moved. But his hand let go of the bag. It hit the pavement with a thud. He looked down once, then slowly raised his eyes to Nico. The look changed everything. Jason took one step forward. Then another. The alley went silent. Walter looked up. And the phones began recording. Because they knew. Something was about to go very, very wrong. Before we proceed, like and subscribe to catch Jason Statham's epic face-off with dangerous gang leader. And comment where you're watching from today. The alley cut behind a block of worn-down buildings in downtown Los Angeles. A shortcut only locals used, the kind that smelled like rain-soaked concrete and old motor oil. Graffiti bled across every brick wall, a collage of gang tags, street art, and weathered protest slogans. A few trash cans overflowed with rotting takeout and broken bottles. Steam rose from manhole covers, merging with the drizzle that made the pavement glisten under the gray sky. It was the kind of alley where most people walked faster. It felt forgotten. But it was far from empty. Today, that alley was alive, with the sound of shoes slapping pavement, car bass thumping from somewhere around the block, and the distant hiss of a fryer from a taco truck in the next lot over. Rain tapped on rusted railings, the scent of wet cardboard thick in the air. It was a perfect storm of anonymity, and the wrong place to make noise, unless you were trying to make a statement. That is exactly what Nico Cruz came here to do. And Jason Statham? He was already there. Jason was not there to make a statement. He had walked this alley 100 times. It was a quiet shortcut between an old boxing gym and a hidden diner that served the best ribs in L.A. No frills, no crowd, no cameras. He liked it that way. Wearing a charcoal hoodie and a soft-worn canvas jacket, hood up against the drizzle, Jason walked with a kind of gait that made people subconsciously step aside without knowing why. Hands in pockets. Head down. A plastic takeout bag in one hand, grease already soaking through the bottom. To anyone watching, he looked like another face blending into the gray day. But his eyes missed nothing. The alley was his peace zone, a place where no one knew him, and nobody cared. Until today. Until that voice cut through the rain. Until he saw the tarp fly. Until he heard the slap. Until someone crossed the line. Jason stopped walking. His jaw flexed once. Lunch could wait. Walter had been sleeping behind that rusted fire escape for 2 years. No one remembered when he first showed up, but he'd been a quiet fixture ever since, always in the same camo jacket, boots unlaced, a duffel bag and tarp tucked neatly beside him like military regulation had never left his soul. Locals respected him. He never begged. Never raised his voice. Never complained. Some new pieces of his past, Vietnam. Bronze Star. Purple Heart. But Walter never told the stories. He simply sat, eyes calm, always thanking those who tossed him a coffee or a fresh pair of socks. He saluted the flag during morning garbage truck runs. He nodded at every passerby, even the ones who sneered. He didn't ask for pity. He just asked to be left alone. But to people like Nico Cruz, that kind of quiet dignity was a target. Weakness. Walter had watched tough guys come and go. He had never flinched. Until today, when his tarp was ripped from under him and thrown into the gutter like trash. Even then, he stayed silent. Nico Cruz was not built on silence. He was built on spectacle. 24 years old. Face half covered in jailhouse ink. 1 gold tooth and 2 burner phones. His rise came fast, off YouTube clips of beatdowns, live-streamed alley shakedowns, and threats disguised as jokes. He had built a reputation on fear, not respect. And that made him dangerous. To his gang, he was a showman, a leader who turned every act of cruelty into content. He did not just rule the block. He filmed it, tagged it, and dared someone to stop him. He picked targets that could not fight back. Junkies. Street vendors. Homeless vets. Because it was easier to win when no one hit back. And today, Walter was his latest prop. He walked into the alley already filming, phone in selfie mode, 3 of his crew trailing behind him laughing. Nico called them his soldiers. They called him El Jeef. But he was not ready for who else was in that alley. Because Jason Statham was already watching. And Jason did not care about cameras. He cared about the moment someone picked the wrong man to mess with. "Hey, live stream," Nico grinned into his phone camera, the red record light blinking. "Y'all ever see a real-life war relic?" He turned the camera toward Walter, who sat up straighter as Nico approached. Then, without hesitation, Nico kicked the tarp, sending it sliding into the gutter, rain soaking through it instantly. One of his goons whistled, the other laughed like it was a stand-up show. Walter's bag tipped, and a small, carefully folded flag rolled out. Nico bent down and snatched it up with 2 fingers, holding it like it was trash. "Ah, what's this? Stars and stripes, huh?" he mocked. "How'd that work out for you, soldier? Get you a free bed under the rats." Walter didn't speak, but his jaw tightened, and he reached for the flag. Nico dropped it just short of his hand, then stepped on it. "You fought for nothing, old man. I run this block now." The camera panned to his goons laughing again. "Let's see if he salutes when I slap him," Nico said, raising his hand half-joking, but still serious enough to make Walter tense. The slap never landed. Not because Nico hesitated, but because someone else was walking into frame. Walter's shoulders remained square, even as the rain soaked his shirt straight through. He didn't flinch when the tarp vanished into the storm drain. He didn't speak when the flag hit the pavement. But his eyes changed. There was sadness, but no fear. His lips tightened. His hands, calloused and gnarled from decades of labor and combat, shook as he reached for the flag. His fingers touched it just as Nico's boot landed on it. Still, Walter didn't beg. He didn't curse. Didn't shout. He just looked down, breathing slow. This was not the first man to try and break him. But maybe it would be the last. He reached again, quieter this time, gentler, as if the flag might dissolve under the weight of the moment. Nico's voice blurred in the background. Walter's world had narrowed to that soaked piece of fabric. Until another sound came. Footsteps. Measured. Slow. He looked up, and saw a shadow cutting through the alley mist, hood up, body steady, eyes locked forward. Walter recognized something in that walk. Someone who had fought. Someone who wasn't here to film. Jason stepped into the center of the chaos without a word. He didn't raise his voice. Didn't ask questions. He simply bent down, picked up the food bag he had dropped when Nico first shoved him, and gently set it on a nearby ledge. Then he turned around, his gaze locking onto Nico like a laser scope. Nico looked up from his phone and sneered, "Oh look, it's fast and forgotten." His goons snorted. Jason didn't react. His hands were loose by his sides. His breathing slow. Rain beaded off his hood as the wind shifted. Walter looked from Jason to Nico, then slowly began collecting what was left of his belongings. Still saying nothing, still holding his dignity together like it was duct taped to his spine. Nico laughed again, angling the camera toward Jason. Let me guess. You're gonna save the day with some karate pose, right? Got a new movie coming out, old man. Jason stepped forward once more. Each footstep echoed. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. The mood in the alley changed. The storm had shifted directions, and it was walking straight at Nico. Nico finally lowered his phone a few inches, realizing Jason wasn't reacting. What's the matter, Hollywood? He said louder, voice trying to stay cocky. Forget your lines. Jason stopped 5 feet from him. Eyes locked. Expression unreadable. You're just another actor playing tough, Nico scoffed. We run real streets. Not movie sets. One of his goons chuckled, then spit on the ground. Yeah man, this ain't no red carpet. Jason blinked once. Then said, quietly, calm as a ticking clock. You just disrespected a man who gave more than you'll ever be worth. Nico's smirk faltered for half a second. Jason continued. And now you think you're hard because you brought a camera crew to punch down? Nico stepped forward. Jason didn't move. You think I'm scared of you? Nico growled, shoving Jason again, this time harder, 2 palms to the chest. Jason didn't stumble. He didn't blink. His shoulders just shifted back into place, like a machine resetting. He slowly rolled his neck. Crack. Then he said 5 words. Low. Measured. Cold. You're gonna regret that now. The goons stopped laughing. The phones came back up. And Jason finally took a step closer. Jason stood inches from Nico now, still silent, still still. His body wasn't tense. It was focused, coiled like a steel spring, waiting. He looked Nico up and down once. Not with fear, not even with anger. With calculation. Then he spoke. Walk away. Nico laughed, quick and loud, glancing at his boys like it was a punchline. Jason continued, voice flat as concrete. This ends now. It was not a threat. It was a fact being offered like a warning. Nico tilted his head. That it? No big speech? No action hero line? Jason's eyes sharpened. You get one chance. You already spent it. Nico flinched, only slightly, but enough to notice. Jason wasn't bluffing. He wasn't acting. He wasn't even raising his fists. That was the scariest part. He was just ready. The alley suddenly felt colder. Behind them, the rain hit harder. Somewhere, thunder cracked faintly in the distance. And the veteran, still kneeling beside his tarp, whispered under his breath. It's happening. As Nico's shove echoed through the alley, people began to emerge. From doorways, shop windows, stairwells, locals leaned out with phones already recording. Wait, is that Jason Statham? Yo, that's really him. What the hell's going on? Someone in a second-story window zoomed in. Another vendor abandoned his kebab cart to get closer. Even a passing cop car slowed, its driver peering down the block before rolling slowly forward. The circle widened but tightened. People weren't closing in, they were clearing space. Everyone knew something was coming. Jason didn't acknowledge the crowd. He never broke eye contact with Nico. The shift in energy was palpable. The laughter was gone. The goons, moments ago grinning, were now glancing between each other, unsure. They had seen men fight. But this felt different. Like someone had just pressed play on a pressure cooker and stepped back. You still here? Nico growled, stepping even closer into Jason's space. I said you're done. Go eat your ribs somewhere else. Jason didn't flinch. Nico shoved him again, this time with both hands, full force. Jason rocked back half a step but immediately regained position, boots planted. Still didn't retaliate. Didn't blink. That rattled Nico. "You deaf or something?" Nico shouted. "You just gonna stare like a statue, bro?" Jason finally responded, but only by taking a deliberate breath. His fists remained loose. His chin tilted slightly forward. He blinked once, slow and steady. Nico shouted to his goons. "He's frozen. I think I broke him." He turned back. Big mistake. Because in that exact moment, Jason's body shifted. Not much. Just enough. His left foot angled out. His center dropped. And his right shoulder inched forward. Not aggressive. Prepared. Nico didn't recognize the stance until it was too late. He launched his right hand in a fast, wild punch, aimed straight at Jason's jaw. Jason didn't duck. He didn't step back. He leaned sideways, just enough to let the punch graze past like smoke. His right hand stayed down. His left shifted upward, elbow tucked. Then he rotated. His body sank, and everything changed. The second Nico's punch missed, Jason's weight dropped into perfect balance. Stance low, hips angled, both hands moving now. No more waiting. No more warnings. The crowd sucked in a breath. The veteran stood up, watching with eyes that recognized precision. And the goons? Their smirks were gone. Because Jason's eyes had gone dark. Goons attacked first. Nico's missed punch hung in the air for half a second. Then chaos exploded. One of his goons lunged from the left, thick arms swinging wild. Jason ducked under the first punch and slammed his shoulder into the man's gut, launching him back into the dumpster. The metal groaned from the impact. The guy dropped instantly, wheezing. Another came from behind, wrapping arms around Jason's torso. Bad idea. Jason shifted his weight, planted his heel, and flung the man over his hip, sending him crashing onto the concrete. The man's back hit hard. He screamed, motionless. A third charged with a metal pipe ripped from the wall. Jason sidestepped, grabbed the goon's wrist mid-swing. Twisted. The man's elbow snapped backward with a grotesque pop. The pipe clattered. Jason caught it in midair and cracked it across the guy's jaw. He dropped like dead weight. The last goon hesitated, eyes wide. Jason didn't wait. He launched forward, one knee to the chest, a hand to the collar, and slammed the man's head into the brick wall. The thud was final. 4 attackers. 4 down. In under 15 seconds. Jason dropped the bent pipe beside him. Then turned back toward Nico. No words. Just fire in his eyes. And blood on his knuckles. Nico gripped the knife tight, 6 inches of serrated steel glinting beneath the alley light. His cocky smirk was gone. Now it was rage, pride, panic. He rushed forward with a wild yell, blade slashing toward Jason's ribs. Jason pivoted sideways, narrowly dodging, but not clean. The blade sliced across his jacket and caught his side, drawing blood. His breath hitched, but his feet never stopped moving. He spun behind Nico, but Nico was faster than expected. He dropped low, swung back, and sliced upward, grazing Jason's shoulder. The crowd gasped. Jason stumbled back a step, blood dripping onto the wet alley floor. Nico smiled again. "Guess you bleed after all, tough guy." Jason looked down at the blood, then at Nico, and his expression changed. The pain sharpened his focus. Nico came in for another strike, blade high, telegraphed. Jason caught his wrist mid-air. Twisted. The knife clattered to the ground. Jason kneed Nico in the stomach, grabbed his collar, and head-butt him clean in the face, a sickening crack as cartilage collapsed. Nico reeled. Jason kicked the knife behind him, out of reach. The crowd started cheering, but Jason wasn't done. This was no longer about just defense. It was about finishing what Nico started. Nico stumbled backward, blood pouring from his nose, barely able to see straight. Jason advanced, slow and silent, like a shadow made of steel. The alley crowd had gone still again. Even the live streamers weren't speaking, just capturing every second with wide, unblinking eyes. Nico threw a sloppy punch, more instinct than strategy. Jason slipped it with ease. He grabbed Nico by the arm and spun him sideways, slamming him back first into the alley's steel support pole. The sound echoed like a bell. Nico gasped, body convulsing. Jason stepped in, grabbed the front of his jacket, and drove a brutal knee into his ribs. Once. Twice. A third time. Crack. Nico's legs buckled. He sagged forward. Jason held him up by the collar, looked him dead in the eyes. You picked the wrong man. And boom. A devastating elbow to the jaw, all of Jason's body weight behind it. Nico's head snapped sideways, and he collapsed in a heap, completely unconscious before he hit the ground. His crew, silent. The crowd, frozen. Jason stepped back. Blood on his hands, rain on his face, breath controlled. He turned, retrieved his food bag from the ledge, now soggy, but intact, and walked over to Walter. He did not look back. The fight was over. But the story was just beginning. Jason stood above Nico Cruz's unconscious body, his chest rising and falling with slow, measured breaths. Blood trickled down his side, mixing with the rain as it soaked through his hoodie. His jaw was tight, his fists unclenched now, but still ready if needed. The alley was dead silent. Nico's livestream phone lay on the ground, still recording, its lens cracked but active. The camera faced upward, capturing Jason framed against the stormy sky, a silhouette of absolute control. One of the goons moaned nearby, still crawling. None of them dared move closer. Jason didn't say a word. He didn't gloat. Didn't raise a fist. Didn't taunt. He just stood there for a moment, looking down at the man who spat on a flag, mocked a veteran, and threw punches like the world owed him something. And now, the world had answered. Jason stepped back, leaving Nico where he fell. Defeated. Disarmed. Disgraced. Walter was still kneeling, his hands trembling as he gathered his scattered belongings. His tarp was soaked. His flag, muddy, wrinkled, lay at his feet. Jason knelt down beside him. No words. He gently picked up the flag, folded it with practiced precision, and handed it back. Walter took it with both hands like it was made of glass. Jason stood again, turned to grab the tarp from the gutter, and shook it clean as best he could. He helped Walter wrap it back over his supplies, moving with quiet respect. Walter finally broke the silence. "Thank you," he said softly. Jason didn't reply. He simply offered his hand. Walter took it. Jason helped him to his feet, steady and slow. For a beat, they just stood there, two men who had seen war in different ways. One still fighting, one surviving. Jason gave him a single nod, one of respect, not pity, and stepped back. The look between them said more than words ever could. Siren lights flickered at the far end of the alley. A patrol car rolled up slow, tires splashing water. Two officers stepped out, hands hovering near their holsters, until they saw the scene. 4 men groaning on the ground. 1 unconscious. Jason standing still. A dozen locals with phones up, filming. 1 officer moved toward him. What happened here? Jason pointed at the phone still streaming near Nico's hand. Start there. The officer picked it up, brows furrowed as the screen showed Nico's own recorded assault from minutes earlier. The entire crowd chimed in. He started it. They jumped the old man. Jason saved that vet. The officers relaxed slightly. One called for medical backup. The other nodded to Jason. You need treatment? Jason glanced at his cut. Shrugged. Nothing serious. They didn't ask for his name. They already knew. As paramedics rushed past, Jason turned away. He had seen enough uniforms for a lifetime. Jason walked past the wreckage. Nico sprawled in the dirt, gang members groaning, police sorting out the chaos. He didn't stop. He walked over to Walter, reached into his coat pocket, and handed him a weathered, folded envelope. Walter looked confused. What's this? Jason didn't answer. He just nodded again. Walter opened it, cash. Not a handout. Not charity. A gesture. Enough to get him a room. A warm meal. Maybe a new coat. Walter swallowed hard. You didn't have to. Jason held up a hand. You earned it. Years ago. Then he picked up his takeout bag, now half destroyed, and started down the alley, back the way he came. No headlines. No thanks. No monologue. Just the rain tapping on the concrete, and the quiet crunch of his boots as he vanished into the city. The crowd parted as he passed. Phones lowered. Heads bowed. He didn't look back. He never did. Power means nothing when it is used to crush the powerless. In every city, on every street, there are people who prey on the quiet ones, those who walk with heads down, shoulders heavy, trying to make it through one more day. The loud ones call it dominance. They call it strength. But real strength does not scream. It does not broadcast pain for likes. It does not step on the broken just to feel tall. Real strength protects. It shields. It stands still while chaos roars around it, and does not move unless it must. Jason never raised his voice. He did not throw the first punch. He gave warnings, quiet ones. But when those were ignored, he answered with force that could not be ignored. That is what it means to carry strength. Not for display. Not for clout. But for purpose. He fought not for fame, but for a man the world had forgotten. A soldier left behind. And in doing so, he reminded everyone watching. The strongest warriors aren't the ones that start the fight. They're the ones who end it. For the right reason. Respect is not earned by humiliating others in public. It is not earned by filming your cruelty, or measuring manhood in punches and posts. It is earned, quietly, when you step between cruelty and someone who cannot defend themselves. It is earned when you see injustice. And instead of looking away, you stand there. You let the silence build. And then, if the time comes, you break that silence with something louder than words. A single move. A clean blow. A message that echoes long after the fight ends. Respect isn't earned by stepping on the weak. It's earned when you stand between cruelty and someone who can't.